My original plan was to include everything I wanted to say about protein into one episode, but I have a few more notes here, so it looks like we're going to have a second helping. Sitting here at the start of this recording session, I'm not entirely convinced that I have enough material to fill out another 20-minute episode. We may have a lot of padding at the end, but I guess we'll find out. Now, looking at the YouTube analytics for the videos on this channel, I've noticed, and it's probably true for a lot of videos all across the internet, that people will start watching at the beginning and then it just drops off precipitously. That YouTube can tell when you've stopped watching, when they've stopped sending your computer data on the video. So I will put what I think is probably the most interesting thing right up front and hope to get your attention. There is an interesting facet to protein in that you don't need to eat foods that have whole proteins. I said that they were combined or created by combining amino acids, and sometimes some foods have some amino acids and some other foods have other amino acids, and when you eat those two together, your body actually creates a whole protein inside, like rice and beans. And so even before anybody knew what a protein was, the Spanish and Mexicans had foods they were consuming that were providing full nutrition. Now, another interesting thing, and I just read one report on this, so I don't know how true it is, and that is that you don't even need to eat, like, for example, rice and beans combined. If you consume some amino acids but not the other ones to create a protein, your body apparently, according to this study, will store those amino acids. It's almost like your body has a bank for all of the major amino acids that it needs, and as it gets them in various foods, it holds on to them until the other amino acids get consumed so it can combine and create that protein. Not sure about that one. I'm not going to assert it. Again, I only saw that on one website, but I thought that was interesting. Anyway, nature is full of all of the parts that you need to eat them in combination or even separately and create proteins, so you don't have to have a nice, juicy, delicious steak, although that's always the best option. You can just sort of mix and match, and eventually your body will say, those are all the puzzle pieces I need to create this protein, send it off to the muscle, and get the body working. The rest of this video will be answers to comments from the previous video, some clarification of other things that I said, so let's go to the mailbox. We begin with a return to the question of how much protein to consume, and I began by giving you the common knowledge of 1 gram of protein to 1 pound of body weight. And to that, Harry Hayfield had this reaction. Now, he's British, so just for fun, I'm going to practice my British accent. Sir, I wish to humbly disagree with your assertion that to gain muscle, you need to ingest 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Well, there's good news here, Harry, and that is, I'm going to assume you typed that before you finished watching the whole video, because just after the section where I talk about 1 gram per 1 pound, I present some of the counter information from research scientists saying you don't need that much. The average human being does not need to consume that much. Harry, in his full comment, even referenced an article by Menno Henselmans, so there's more good news. I actually referenced the same article in that episode, so make sure you watch all of episode 73 to get the full range of my discussion, my amateur discussion, I admit, but my discussion on how much protein to consume. And to recap, we don't really seem to know. Interestingly enough, though, you know how sometimes if there are people who report that they will say something near their cell phone, and hours later they'll be on Facebook and they'll see ads down their sidebar trying to sell them on the very thing they were talking about near their cell phone. And that's kind of creepy. And I've experienced a little bit of that myself, so I know it's not just urban legends. Anyway, I uploaded this video, or I uploaded video 73 to YouTube, and a day later in my opening homepage feed, there were 3 or 4 videos on how much protein do you need. And so I watched a few of them just to see what people thought, and let's go ahead and take a look now. I've loaded 3 to my computer, and we'll see what happens here. The first one is Ross Dickerson on the question of how much protein to consume.
It is first thing in the morning and I want to eat some food. Rise and shine. I do not know how.
And the first thing I want to say is that I hope I've never made you cringe the way I want to already cringe here.
I've always had such a high protein diet. Lots of people always say, 1 gram, 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. I've kind of gone along with that, but I've always been a little bit on the higher end of the scale. I've never been one to be exactly 200 grams, 250 grams. I kind of aim for the 300 plus above. I know people are going to be like, that's far too much.
Okay, so he references the common knowledge of 1-to-1, and then he just said he goes up to 300 grams. And it sounds like, without going back and watching it, sounds like that's adding 50% of what he would eat at 1-to-1. So he's doing 1.5 to 1. And then he says, a lot of people say that's too much. From everything I've read, that's certainly too much for the average male just trying to be healthy. Now, if you look right there at his arms and his tight t-shirt, and apart from certain feelings of envy that I'm having right now, somebody's going to say, Brian, do not envy him. He's clearly on steroids. Now, for the sake of avoiding a libel lawsuit, I will not state that he's on steroids, but I will allege that I agree with the probability that he is. That is some size on that arm that most men could not achieve just by eating right and exercising hard. The thing to note about steroids, just a little side note here, a little asterisk, is it's not a magic potion. You can't just sit on the couch injecting steroids day after day and end up winning the Mr. Olympia. You still have to work out hard and you still have to eat right. And so he clearly has worked out hard and has eaten right. But 1.5 grams is just not something that most people will ever need. I would guess, this is an educated guess, I would guess that even amateur or natural natty bodybuilders do not consume that much protein. If you are a natural bodybuilder, certified natural, and you want to update me on that, I am welcome to being corrected, because again, that was just a guess. But listening to him right here, yeah, that is high. That's high for everybody but him. Okay, I watched the rest of Ross Dickerson, and he didn't have a lot to say on the question. That was a 13-minute video, and really only a little bit of it was on how much to eat. He told us how much he eats, and then he tells us about our day. So let me upload the next one here. Okay, my first thought before I go any further is I probably can't use this audio because he's got music in there that I may not be licensed to use. So I will have to tell you what we're talking about here. Let me start this over. Protein is arguably the most important nutrient when it comes to building muscle and strength, but how much do you need and how important is it really? Well, I decided to track my food and eat at least 200 grams of protein every single day for 30 days. And what happened was absolutely eye-opening. Check this out. Okay, he's going through the 1-to-1 ratio. He's saying, we've all heard this. And now he's referencing the studies that say you don't actually need that much. He weighed 195 pounds. He chose 200 grams so that it was consistent. It was an easy number.
Logging out, tracking, and eating at least 200 grams of protein a day has made me realize that previous to this experiment, I have been eating way less than 200, like way less. Probably most of the time around like 120 grams a day, with an occasional like high day just from eating a lot of calories in general.
I estimated I was taking around.
I probably on any given day don't eat enough protein either. Okay, positive changes. I felt like my skin was looking tighter, my muscles felt denser, I felt an increase in strength and energy on my compound lifts, and I felt like I was able to maintain great form easier. By day 12, I couldn't help but notice that my body composition was looking harder and more muscular than day 1. 200 grams of protein every single day seemed to be working phenomenally. I'm trying to talk to you and listen to him at the same time. I'm going to interrupt this video and move on to the next one, but I am personally interested to watch the whole thing and see what he says. He has some, it's anecdotal to be sure, but he has some real life results to talk about for eating the 1-to-1 ratio. And as I said in the previous video, the science seemed to indicate that there was a point where you've eaten enough and more than that was useless, but not harmful. Now he's saying, I ate the 1-to-1 and it really started to show results. So, now we have the question, what kinds of men are the scientists researching? Are they researching the average guy who goes to work, goes home, he has a wife and kids, but he's not concerned about getting big and strong? Maybe he doesn't go to the gym at all, or minimally. Maybe he goes for jogs. He's not concerned about an aesthetic. He's just a guy. This man wants to improve his lifts, improve his body, and he's saying that 1-to-1 seems to be, in 12 days he had an identifiable physical change and identifiable changes in his experiences, his lifting experiences and his movement and things like that.
Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization. Fitness Myths, series number 7. Extra protein has to be better. Yes, that is a myth. We'll talk about the claim, reasoning of why it's wrong, grains of truth, and best practices as always. So here's kind of the nature of the claim. 2 claims.
All right. So in his intro, Dr. Mike here has said 1-to-1 is not true.
So here is why this is wrong. And it's a couple points. First, nearly all data on naturals illustrates that a gram per pound of protein is usually overkill in almost every case. Okay, growth tops out at just below a gram per pound per day. So there are people who are very smart.
So he is siding with the scientific studies that I've referenced.
Now, in some extreme cases, pre-contest, last 3 weeks for naturals, 1.25 grams per pound can show marginal benefits. But most people are not in that extreme case by a long shot. So if you're not in that extreme case, it really is difficult to figure out why you're eating more protein than that.
Sounds to me like the average male, even the average male trying to get healthy, will at the top end of things will hit 1-to-1. So let's see, which hand do I want? If this is your weight, your protein will be below or occasionally match it. Going over it will just be useless, pretty much. For the sake of moving on to other topics in this video series, I'm going to stick with that. So in conclusion, I would have to say I stand by what I said, which is we don't really know. You and I, the average people who do not have access to a laboratory and equipment that can analyze proteins, and we don't have access to test subjects where we can get people in to really study how the protein is working in their bodies and how much they need, we won't really know. I just have to settle on eat some. Yeah. I haven't found any number anywhere on the internet lower than 0.6 grams per pound. And then I have the common 1 gram of pound, 1 gram per pound of body weight. So if you eat somewhere in there as an average human being, even as an average guy who wants to get in better shape, I think that'll be fine. If you want to get bigger, then you'll probably need to up that. If you're going to add muscle mass, it only makes sense that you then have to add more protein. You can have a daily amount that you can consume to just stay like you are and stay healthy. But if you want to get bigger, you need to add more of the building blocks, because if you want to build a bigger Lego castle, you have to dump more Legos on the floor. Also, on the subject of how much protein to eat, I referenced putting together a meal plate, and I said that on that plate, the protein should look like about the size of a deck of cards. That is an illustration that was given to me in 2010 by Dan Ward when I got really my very first lesson on health and fitness nutrition, and he said that was an easy way to just kind of estimate how much protein to eat. And a guy who goes by Farth on Discord, and he goes by something else on YouTube. I've already mentioned him before. I already have his graphic to put up. So I don't know what name he wants to go by. I'm going to go by the name that I first referenced him by. You're stuck with that. Once you're in my files for these in the mailbox things, you're stuck. You can change your username, and I say tough. I can only keep up with so much. He says, I found that everything was correct, but I didn't really get the deck of card thing because it isn't a lot of protein. I'd still be very hungry if I only ate 1 deck of cards of chicken. And so just in case I wasn't clear, I want to clarify, that's 1 meal. Yes, you want to eat more protein than that throughout the day, but that's a good way to estimate how much protein to put on your plate for 1 meal. So that's assuming that you will have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and possibly some snacks in between that will add to your protein. And then just to help you out here, a few days ago, I actually had a lunch where my plate looked like it should. I'm here at lunchtime on a random day in March, and I happen to have a plate laid out like what I described in the previous episode. You see, I have the protein source here, chicken, approximately the size of a deck of cards, and then the rest of the plate is carbs with the rice, a random pea rolling onto the floor, and then some mixed vegetables up there. This represents 1 meal. This was not meant to suggest that this is all the protein you have for the day, just a deck of cards worth. No, this is 1 plate for 1 meal. So definitely your lunch and your dinner. If breakfast does something different like eggs and oatmeal, then of course it's not going to look like this. And of course you can also replace the chicken with steak, with beef, with pork, with turkey. But that's just kind of how your plate should look. If I can get a good tilt here without losing more vegetables. It's basically a third and a third and a third on my plate. And I don't know, some professional nutritionist might adjust that a little, but that's about right. And for just basic healthy living, if you aren't looking to win your local amateur bodybuilding competition, if you're just trying to be a healthy male, this is a great place to start. All right, one more comment here. This comes from frequent commenter G-Vuz, who says, obviously the lesson was to get all my protein needs from bacon. I won't say you can't, but you will be getting a lot of grease and fat along with it. A lot. I don't even know offhand how much protein is in a single strip of bacon. So you may also be extremely stuffed by day's end. And that, I think, wraps up much in the way that you could wrap up a chicken breast in strips of bacon and fry it and eat that gorgeous serving of protein. I think that wraps up everything I have to say about protein, at least for now. I think that's it. That's all on protein. We'll see you next time on A Body in Progress.